Welcome everyone to More to Explore, where we keep you up to date with everything happening here on explore.org. And today we're featuring our new Burrowing Owl cam, which we're getting a fantastic live view of right now. And we're going to learn all about the Burrowing Owls in just a little bit. And then speaking of owls, we also have some returning cams, another amazing shot. There's a live view of our great gray owl cam and our great horned owl cam back. So let's jump right into it. My name is Brian Bird, and joining me once again is Explore.org's resident naturalist, Mike Fitz. Mike, good afternoon.
Hey, Brian. Hello, everyone, no matter where you happen to be watching around the world. If you're new to Explore.org, welcome to the community. And of course, we welcome back all of our longtime viewers. We're the world's largest live nature cam network with about 200 live cameras all over the world. And this is a bird-heavy program today, although we're going to talk about a couple of other things beyond birds at the very end of the program. But if you have questions for Brian and I about the cams, if you want to let us know what you're watching, what you're looking forward to watching this week, let us know in the comments. And right now, we're looking at a live view of our new cam at the Burrowing Owls. This is in Oregon. And burrowing owls are such a fascinating species of birds. It looks like right now the burrowing owls are keyed in on something in the distance. And this is one of the special things that we get to watch on explore.org. But they're fascinating for a lot of different reasons. And by reputation, owls are considered to be tree-dwelling birds. But there are notable exceptions. We can think of snowy owls, for instance. And then also in the Americas, for example, burrowing owls exploit a special niche in places like savannas, prairies, deserts, and even open areas created by people. True to their name, burrowing owls utilize animal burrows as nest sites to incubate their eggs and to raise their owlets. So again, this is one of our newest cameras on our worldwide collection, and this is located at a site in northern Oregon. It's on a landscape that the U.S. Army once used as a chemical weapons depot. It's since become a site of restoration for burrowing owls and a place to study their habits. It also offers the opportunity to better understand how people can help these unique owls thrive. And to help us learn more about burrowing owls, I spoke with Denver Holt. Denver is an owl biologist as well as the founder and president of the Owl Research Institute, Explore.org's webcam partner for our suite of owl-focused cameras. And so in our conversation, Denver introduces us to burrowing owls and answers a few questions about the relaunch of our great horned owl and great gray owl webcams. And here's our conversation. Denver, great to talk with you once again. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy field season to speak with us.
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me, actually, but we are busy. I will say that we're doing it's nest searching season right now. So we've finished our surveys, but glad to help out. I'll do the best I can. I know a little bit about burrowing owls, but this project was initially started by David Johnson of the Global Owl Project, and he's kind of come down with some illnesses and has asked me to help take over, but he deserves most of the credit for the implementation of this project, along with the Umatilla Indian Reservation and the depot base.
Yeah, it is really fascinating, and I want to get into those details in just a little bit. Let's just talk about maybe burrowing owls in general right now. I know that you have a love and fascination for all owls, but what do you find special or fascinating about burrowing owls?
Well, I think as you opened with, the fact that they have found this niche in somewhat treeless areas, and that they nest underground in burrows created by fossorial mammals, burrows created just naturally by some other instances, and maybe a rock falls off or is dug up or something like that, a root system washes out. They can also dig their own burrows in certain areas or modify burrows. So it's pretty unique that they've been able to exploit this open country resource and live on the ground.
And then other than their ability to utilize burrows, how else are burrowing owls kind of adapted for life in grasslands and kind of open spaces?
Well, I think one of the things that you notice right away is their long legs, and they're bipedal, and very very agile in being bipedal. So, most owls can walk, but burrowing owls kind of take it to another level. They have the long legs and that they can scurry about very comfortably on those long legs.
And we're looking on our webcams, we're looking at an artificial burrow. I don't know if there is chicks in the nest or eggs in the nest right now. Should we expect to see chicks at the burrow on this webcam some point, this spring and summer? And what part of the nesting season are we in for the owls right now?
Well, we should be in the egg laying, the courtship / egg laying period. Now, I haven't checked the cam today. I don't know if both birds are sitting out there, but once the female disappears, then we can make the assumption that she's in the burrow incubating eggs, and then the male will provide her with food while she's doing her incubation duties, which are plus or minus 30 days or so. But as far as when will we see the birds after that, so right now we're just going to see mostly the male. She may come out, he may just go in. It kind of depends on the pairs, social dynamics, I think. But usually after hatching, and it will be asynchronous hatching like in most species of owls. So the first egg laid may hatch several days before the last egg laid, if they could lay 5, 6, 7, 8 eggs. So you could have kind of a wide range of ages and sizes in relation to that. But roughly at about 2 weeks of age, they'll start moving out to the burrow entrance. And then that is really, really cool, especially when you see like 4 or 5 of them come out of the burrow and, just be owls and be young owls, inquisitive and looking around at their surroundings and trying to figure out what the heck where they are, what they're doing, what am I supposed to do? And at the same time, bumming food from their parents.
And you just touched on something I wanted to ask you about, and that's the family life of burrowing owls. How does that maybe differ from owl species that we're used to watching who nest in trees?
I think in general, there's a lot of similarities among owls in general. There's, what I would call biparental care and sex roles that are somewhat specific, yet at the same time somewhat overlapping. And again, only females, of course, lay eggs, but only females develop or vascularized brood patch, and only females will incubate. Only females will brood the young chicks and feed the chicks, for the most part during the younger stages of their life, where she has to tear apart food and feed them. And it's the same with most owls. And males, their job is to provide food and protection. So they're very similar in many ways, except for the fact that they nest underground, and they've developed maybe, I don't say more vigilance in most species, but yet they have to be very vigilant. They're on the ground in open country, not a lot of places to hide. So their vigilance might be at a little higher level. And particularly, they're not really a large owl, they're small to medium-sized owl. So that might be one of the differences, is they're susceptible to mammalian predation, avian predation. Let's see, mostly mammalian and avian predation that they would be susceptible to. So they must always be on guard. Where something like, a great horned owl, great gray owl, larger species like that, I mean, they're big and they're powerful and they can fend off most things, but they have to be vigilant as well, but maybe not to the extent that the burrowing owls do.
And one thing that I'm looking forward to watching through the webcams is maybe the opportunity to see the burrowing owl chicks play. I mean, many bird species engage in play, although it's kind of difficult to observe, especially if like the birds are flying. If we can see play in the owlets for our burrowing owl nest cam, what might that look like? What have scientists documented that looking like?
Years ago, we used to get in trouble if you said the animals are playing. And, whether it was otters sliding down a snowy slope and running back up and sliding down again, most people would say that looks like play, but, scientists types would say, well, how do you know that's play? And all that stuff. So you kind of run into a little bit of questioning of that, but nonetheless, it sure looks like play. They're bobbing their heads, they're interacting with each other. I would interpret some of that as play. but quantifying it's kind of difficult to do. But I think you just look at the behaviors, how they interact with each other is the biggest thing. That's kind of cool. And then I don't know if you would consider how they interact with their environment and what they see as play, but you see these behaviors that imply, learning, alertness, taking in this, taking in that, picking up things and investigating them. Is that play or is that just inquisitiveness? So it's hard to tease apart. And I think each individual person who watches it has a little interpretation of what they see.
That's part of the beauty of the webcams is we get to come to it with our own experiences, our own interpretations, and collectively perhaps come to some consensus and documentation about what's been going on.
That's the beauty of the webcams, is that we're able to see this and to see it, I don't know if I want to overuse the word naturally or organically, but we're not there in a sense. And we can see how they just interact with their environment and learn and each other and all that. And that is so cool. I really am interested in owl behavior in general. Like I said, it's one thing to track them here and there and all that. That's cool information, cool technology and all that. But to know what they actually do versus inferring it, the cams are going to provide that insight into burrowing owls' lives.
And this camera is also located at like a unique location. It's located at the Umatilla Chemical Depot, where the U.S. Army once stored chemical weapons. So there's a population of burrowing owls there that was nearly extirpated, in the early 2000s. I've read there was something like 3 to 4 breeding pairs remaining in this population at that time. And since then, the owl population has grown substantially, but it didn't happen without human intervention. So I'm wondering if you could talk about, the conditions that led to the near loss of this local population of burrowing owls at the depot and what efforts allowed the owl population to rebound.
Okay. And all that information really is credited to David Johnson, the Global Owl Project. And so I can just, kind of relay the information that either I've read through reports or David has directly told me. So he's the one that was approached by the military and the tribes, Umatilla tribes as well, that their populations had decreased to whatever it was, 3 plus or minus 3, as you stated there. And I think a lot of it had to do with a campaign to eradicate coyotes and poison coyotes. And so in doing so, they kind of killed everything, and the fact that it was a fenced in area didn't allow any animals to re-enter and get back into the reservation / the military base. So when they contacted David, again, my understanding is that he said, yeah, I think we can do something here. We can create artificial burrows. And if you could see the construction processes of these burrows, it's like a small construction project, digging a little hole in your backyard to put water pipes in or something like that. I mean, it's an enormous effort. So David constructed all these burrows throughout both of the land ownerships there with the intent of, having a place for burrowing owls. And he did his best to make them predator proof for the most part. And so I think when Soleil, who's a master's candidate, Soleil Lefay, last year, I think she had over 100 nests. And almost every one of those nests were in these artificial burrows that David had created. Meanwhile, over the past few years, a few badgers have somehow found a way to enter the reservation through the fence or dug under it, whatever. And they're starting to reemerge in both ownerships there. And they've dug their own burrows. And in doing so, they've also created new burrows for the burrowing owls. So now we're seeing some of the burrowing owls, very few, but go back to natural sites, as well as, the 100 or so artificial sites that they have are also being occupied. And the percentage changes a little from year to year, but last year was a particularly good year.
And yeah, speaking of the webcams and our webcam audience and our ability to watch the birds 24/7, what do you suggest webcam viewers watch for that might advance our overall understanding and knowledge of burrowing owls?
I don't know anymore, because after dealing with webcam viewers for all these years now, it's, there's opinions all over the place and questions all over the place. But what we have learned is that some of the webcam viewers are very, very astute. And that, they look at things and they come up with pretty cool questions. And they very often, on the online question and answer process, which I never get involved in. But I see some really unique questions. How can you do this? How can you do that? So it would just be interesting to see what they come up with, because if they make all these observations, and they would watch the Burrowing Owl cam more than me. They watch all the cams more than me because we're out working, and they come up with some cool questions. So it'd be kind of neat to see what they come up with, and then maybe you pose those questions to researchers. Say, hey, what about looking at this? What about looking at that? That might be kind of cool. One of the great examples, I think, was I can't remember where the cam watcher was from, but she was watching osprey nests in ours here in the Mission Valley of Montana. She was able to identify all the fish. She was able to get a relative size. I mean, it was really, really detailed. I mean, you swore she was a researcher. And she started posting her reports on this fish, that fish, here's the sizes, here's this and that, how many delivered. And there was a student from, I can't remember what university, who contacted her and basically say, hey, can you give me all your data so I can write a paper? And she contacted me, and I said, well, here's what I would do in relation to that. But that was a classic example of what a cam watcher can do with the interest. And as I say, some of the stuff is really, really interesting that they come up with. So I would let that maybe dictate questions for us in the future.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I would certainly encourage our webcam audience to let their imaginations, go for a bit and be creative and think about, hey, what am I really interested in documenting at these nests? And go for it if you have the time, or maybe enlist the help of a few webcam watchers to do so, because you don't really know what you could discover or what could be valuable. And I know I lean on the knowledge of our webcam audience all the time, because I can't watch all of the cameras.
They're amazing. David has an idea that at some of these burrows, the male burrowing owls will apparently decorate in and around the entranceway. And we really aren't able to watch it until now, maybe, but you can notice that, whether it's a rock or dung or a pellet or something shiny that they found, but that they're decorating. Some of the males are decorating right around the burrow entrance. Now, is that to maybe advertise to other males? This is occupied. I'm a pretty badass male, stay away. Is that to entice a female? But it usually happens afterwards. And then his idea on that was that the older males tended to do that versus the younger males tended not to. And so would something like those who decorate be an indication of better survival rates and better reproduction, because you have perhaps a high quality male and a high quality female together? So, I mean, I don't know, but now with the cams, we might be able to see the whole decoration process going on, whereas before we would see the result of the decoration process. So I think that's really, really cool. And I mean, and so David's idea on that could be turned into a research question.
Well, something certainly for our webcam audience to watch for, among so many other things. One final question for you, Denver, about burrowing owls before I ask you about some other owls and events. Can you give us an example of a burrowing owl call or song?
I've had to do this. I can't that well, but it's like a cooing. And they write it out as like cuckoo, cuckoo. But then there's the other vocalization, which I've never heard. I've only read about, the rattlesnake vocalization, which I think is phenomenal. That this has been inferred and or evolved, where they give that, like, it sounds like a rattlesnake. So let's just say you're a fox or something, you come to the burrow entrance, say, maybe we may get a free meal down here, and you enter, and then you hear this rattlesnake, and you say, wait a minute, there's a rattlesnake in there. I think I'll back out. So I think what a cool evolutionary vocalization. I mean, just so cool. And again, I've never heard it. I've only read about it, and I've only read the theory about it.
And I wanted to ask you about a few other um, owl cams and events associated with our owl cams that we have. Because in partnership with the Owl Research Institute, we just launched webcams for great horned owls and great gray owls, and we anticipate maybe having a long-eared owl cam coming back very soon.
Yeah, we had a great long-eared last year, but this year we haven't found the nest yet that we want.
So, yeah, with the great horned owls, what can you tell us about the nesting pair that we're currently watching in Charlotte, Montana?
Well, the cam watchers have named them, which I do not, Hootie and Wonky over the years. And so they have a history of being the same pair and a history with the cam watchers. So the cam watchers are very excited. This year we were a little late to get the cam up, and cam watchers weren't very happy with that. And so Hootie and Wonky are right, pretty close to my house, right across in my neighbor's trees, but they roost on the osprey cam all winter long. And so this year they chose a most unusual nest. Normally we find the nest and the Explore crew comes over in mid-March and we get the cam up and ready to go. And the birds are just so used to us that it's pretty easy. We couldn't find them for a while. And then they were in the crotch of a big willow tree. I mean, just in the crotch, which I think it's 3 or 4 big branches came together and created a little bowl in there instead of the stick nest, which they usually use. So they've been a very good pair. They always lay 3 eggs. They almost always have 3 chicks. This year, however, it's kind of different, as she had 3 eggs when we found her. And the next time we checked with the cam people, and again, we were behind on getting there, she had 1 egg and 1 large chick. We don't know if the other egg didn't hatch or there was a chick that may have died that hatched. I don't know. But and the other egg has not shown any sign of hatching. So right now, she just has 1 chick. And this is traditionally a very, very, very productive pair. It appears to be the same birds. She's identified by her eye and all that. So we're just monitoring that, and hopefully she can pull one off this year. And we don't know what happened to the other one, whether it hatched and died or whether the egg was flipped out of the nest, or we just don't know what happened. And the other egg seems to be just sitting there right now.
And it's a great view into the nest itself. So I think we'll have a lot of great opportunities to watch the development of that single owlet in
yeah,
there.
And great horned owl chicks are arguably some of the most handsome owl chicks that we have, in the United States here. I mean, they are so handsome, as are the snowy owl chicks. Some of the other chicks are kind of ugly at first before they take that classic beautiful owl look.
The other camera that launched recently with you is a repeat, but it's one of the most beautiful camera views that we have on Explore.org, because we're treated to this amazing view of nesting great gray owls in western Montana. And we think this is the only webcam in the world for great gray owls. I don't know of another one. So is this the same pair of great gray owls that we watched in 2025? And if so, what might we learn from them by observing them closely through another nesting season?
All right. Well, first of all, it is a phenomenal view. And it is because they chose a nest which gave us the best opportunity to get a cam on it. And then, of course, we've got BJ and Joe and a few other people who came in with their IT expertise and just made this absolutely a stunning view of the great gray owl. Now, we do know that it is the same female from last year. We still don't know who the male is and whether he's been banded before or not. And so this year we hope to capture him and either band him or read a band number. But it is the same female, and she nested there last year. I think she was maybe 2 to 3 years old, and she came from a nest. She was banded as a nestling like 3 miles away, and we'd never seen her until she showed up. But it was interesting because the female before her was banded, and then she showed up, and we thought it was the same female the prior year, and it wasn't. It was her, and now she's back again. So it's kind of neat. And then it is probably the only live 24/7 infrared camera in the world. Almost all the ones we've had. So whether it's the snowy owl, it's the only one in the world when we get it. The great gray owl is the only live one in the world. The great horn, there's others, but we have infrared on ours, and that makes it. The long-eared owls, I mean, sometimes I think people don't appreciate how hard it is to find a long-eared owl. And last year's nest was spectacular, and we got great views of it. And the guys came over and worked their butts off and all that. And we hope to have more. And so, but the cams, again, this is Explore has helped us as owl researchers not only gather all this information, but also bring the life of owls into the homes of millions of people. And then we can do what we're doing now, talk about them, tell you what we've learned, what we need to do in the future and all that. So I'm just thrilled about these cams and have been for so many years. And we work our butts off to find these owls. I got to tell you, don't take this wrong. It's not that hard to find an osprey nest or an eagle nest. It's not that hard to go put cams up on the fishing bears, even though they're cool. But the owls nest in different nests almost every year. And it's hard to find them. So my crew started February 1st this year, trying to find all these owls for our research as well as to accommodate a live cam.
Well, we appreciate all that hard work for sure. And I my final question for you is, we know that it's important to share, the webcams with other people, to watch the webcams and help others learn. What else can the average sort of person do to help protect owls and owl habitat and your work with the Owl Research Institute?
First of all, support the Owl Research Institute because that's what we do. But one of the programs we're on right now, and we've been on for a number of years, but it takes a long time to collect the sample sizes that we need to have some confidence in our results. And so is saving dead trees for owls, dead and decaying trees. So, traditionally, people, it's a dead tree. I don't like to cut it down. It's a fire hazard. It's diseased. It's a safety issue. There's all kinds of reasons to cut them down, both from private people and from industry. But what we've done now is, Great Gray is an example. We're trying to identify the type of nest sites that they need. And Great Grays very often depend on big, old, broken top trees for nesting because they're so big. They can't just crawl into a woodpecker hole or even a chimney that a middle-sized owl can do. So they need either like a big stick nest, maybe made by a hawk or raven, sometimes mistletoe. But I think that they're really keyed into these broken top, large diameter trees, which end up being cut down for firewood and all the other reasons I just stated. So that's what we're trying to do from a conservation perspective and tell people, even woodlot owners, and I meet with a lot of private timber industry people that have their own, say, can you save some snags? And so now we've measured enough snags that we can say, oh, these are the types of trees, here's the diameter. These guys are obligate cavity nests, so they need woodpecker holes or natural holes. So we need to try to save some of these and don't cut them all down or burn for firewood, whatever you do. With the Great Grays, we're moving in that direction. So we have good samples statistically now for the smaller species that need woodpecker holes or natural holes in trees. And so we try to tell people, save some if they're on your property, check them for owls. And now with the Great Grays, it's the big old broken top snags. Most people take them down for reasons that, they have a lot of reasons to it. And we're trying to say there's a lot of reasons to maintain some of these. So that would be one way to do it. And then we talk about grassland and grassland issues for shorted owls. Grassland, more or less, issues for burrowing owls, tundra issues for snowy owls. So saving a little habitat is really the key, but finding enough nests and quantifying the data buttresses your argument to save and or increase, habitat.
Well, great advice, great information. Today, Denver, I learned a lot, and I always do every time I speak to you about owls. So I want to thank you again for being here and sharing your knowledge of owls with us.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to share some of our work and our knowledge with you. I really appreciate it, and just appreciate Explore, over all the years of providing the cameras that we also learn from.
Thanks again to Denver Holt for joining me. Denver is the founder and president of the Owl Research Institute. You can learn more about their work at owlresearchinstitute.org. It is the first place I go when I need information about owls. And of course, if you want to watch the owls anytime, go to explore.org/owls. You can find our whole collection of owl cams there, including the burrowing owls. Brian, we had a few questions come in while we were listening to Denver and I talk, so I'm going to try to grab a couple of those right now. Rolling Trouble, one of our hardcore fans, is always here watching. Thanks, Rolling Trouble, for being here. Rolling Trouble wrote, "Love this pair. Do they have names in reference to the burrowing owls?" I don't think so, Brian. This is our big chance, though, right? You and I right now. So what do you want to call them?
Oh, man, I have no idea. I will leave that up to the viewers.
Okay, it's probably a good call. I'll give them some weird name. But I want to use this as an opportunity, though, to say that for me, I don't have a problem with nicknaming wild animals, but I think it's always important not to give animals a name that stigmatizes them in some weird way. Like, you don't want to name a brown bear Killer or something like that, right? So I think the best nicknames for wild animals help us identify those individuals or tell a story about something that happened in an individual's life. So maybe we need to get to know the burrowing owls just a little bit longer before we give them names. But if anybody wanted to call the male of this pair Mike or the female Michelle, that'd be cool. So do what you like there. And then we had another question from Colleen, who is wondering, is a burrowing owl behavior different for those who use simple artificial burrows from those who use more complex natural burrows? I don't think so. It seems like they're able to utilize, artificial burrows or burrows constructed by people just as easily and just as well from burrows that are used by fossorial mammals. So I think maybe the structure, though, underneath can vary, because while certain animals will make burrows in similar shapes and sizes, there's gonna be some natural variation there. And I'm not sure if there's variation in the structure of the artificial burrows that they used at the site where we watch burrowing owls now. So that's something that I'll have to look up. But yeah, interesting question. And then finally, XYZ was wondering, I guess they're not strictly nocturnal in reference to burrowing owls. No, these are a very diurnal species. So many owl species, have that sort of diurnal or excuse me, are fairly nocturnal or exclusively nocturnal, but not so with burrowing owls. So you'll get to see them active a lot during the day, which is great for us, especially watching the webcam. And once those little babies pop out of that burrow in a month and a half's time or whatever it is, it's going to be really fun to watch. So thanks for everybody who sent in their questions and comments to us. Many of us have really been fascinated by the burrowing owls, and it's a special experience to be able to watch them so closely. As the population of prairie dogs and other burrowing animals in North America suffered due to habitat conversion and human persecution, many populations of burrowing owls declined or disappeared. Owls, although they're an umbrella species, and that's a concept in conservation biology in which efforts to protect habitat for one species indirectly protects the habitat for other species that make up the community, the ecological community. While some owl species, such as great horned owls and barred owls, are more generalists in their habitat preferences and diet, many other species, such as burrowing owls, great gray owls, and spotted owls, they're more specialists. So giving those species, and all owls, of course, habitat to thrive, that has a positive cascading effect on countless other species.
That's right. And we are fortunate to have partners like ORI to share the wonders of owls with the world. And owls lead us off into our next segment of Egg Watch.
This is our April 2026 edition of Egg Watch, where we check on the bird nesting activity of our myriad cams on Explode.org. So this update will include the return of our owl cams, the arrival of just hatched vireos, and some nests that remind us that loss and difficulty remain part of the life for wild birds. So looking at our owls, with great gray owls, we don't know how many eggs are in their nest right now. We can't see down into the nest, but the female began incubating around March 30th, and then incubation lasts 28 to 36 days or so. So the expected hatch for this nest, very late April, last few days of April perhaps, and very early May. So be on the watch in a few days' time. And then with great horned owls, with Hootie and Wonky, the first owlet was documented there on April 8th. And great horned owlets, they often leave the nest before they can fly. So branching, as it's called in this species, that begins maybe around 6 weeks of age. So we have a lot of time to document the growth of this owlet, and looking, just like Denver said, really, really cute, really handsome. So I think we can watch this owlet for a long time, maybe even into mid to late May. And then in Texas, we're going to head to the southern part of the United States because we have a new nest of birds with newly hatched chicks. I mean, these chicks just hatched like last night. So this is our white-eyed vireo nest with our partner at Texas Backyard Wildlife. I've only seen one bobblehead in the nest so far. Brian, have you seen others?
I don't think so. I think I was seeing the same one that you were.
Okay, yeah, so maybe just one chick in the nest, but maybe we'll see others popping their heads up. They all kind of hatch synchronously, so around the same time. But the nestling period for this species is really short. It lasts only 10 to 11 days, which is kind of
Wow.
incredible because even hummingbird chicks are in the nest for something closer to 20 days or so. So this chick should leave the nest, if all goes well, around May 1st. So this is going to be a nest that I'm going to be watching very closely over the next week and a half or so. And we were watching a cardinal nest with Texas Backyard Wildlife as well, but all those eggs got eaten by, I think, a corn snake on April 15th or so. And this is very, very sped up footage. Brian, I can't remember how quick you said this was sped up, but it's like an hour worth of footage in like 40 seconds.
Yeah, it's very, very fast.
So yeah, that's this snake coming in and finding a meal at this nest. So bad news for the cardinal, great news for the snake. So that's what's been going on there. Again, triumphs and losses all across our bird nest cams. And speaking of triumphs, we're looking forward to the Anna's hummingbirds in Santee, California, with Joy, with her chicks possibly leaving the nest today. They are just ready to take their first flight. So they hatched at the very end of March, and we're expecting them to fledge right around now. So watch today. If they haven't fledged today, watch tomorrow. It's going to be very, very soon. And then also our other Anna's hummingbird cam in that same area, Beatrix, is caring for a single chick. There were two, I think, originally in this nest. We're not sure what happened to the other one, but the remaining chick in the nest seems to be doing pretty well. And then the fledge for that chick should be towards the end of this week or so. So watch for that coming up. On the east coast of the United States, with our spoonbills, other wading birds, at the Alligator Farm Zoological Park in St. Augustine, Florida, still tons of chicks and birds to watch there. So we watch it. This is, I think, a great egret nest. But there's others to watch there as well. Roseate spoonbills, great egrets, snowy egrets, cattle egrets, little blue herons, tricolored herons, wood storks, other birds. Really a great place to see a diversity of wading birds. Great blue herons, farther north in Maryland with the Chesapeake Conservancy. We don't know how many eggs are in this nest, but the birds have been incubating consistently there. So I think maybe at the very end of this month, we should watch the parents to see whether there are chicks in the nest. They're going to come down. They're going to be starting to feed their chicks. And we might not be able to see into the nest bowl, but we'll have to watch the behavior of the parents to let us know whether any chicks have hatched there. Sticking with our partner at the Chesapeake Conservancy, Peregrine falcons, with them in Baltimore, Maryland, Bo and Barb, they actually have 5 eggs in their clutch. And the eggs are separated by 12 days. So almost 2 weeks between the first egg and the last egg. Incubation lasts about 30 days. So I think the hatch for this first egg really is the first week of May. It was laid on April 3rd. And then the 5th egg was laid on April 15th. So maybe mid-May for the hatch in that last egg. And it's going to be pretty challenging for that last chick that in that 5th egg to compete with its older siblings for food. But if Bo and Barb are able to provision, their nestlings with enough food. It's certainly well within the realm of possibility for that youngest chick to survive. And then with our partner at the Raptor Resource Project, Great Spirit Bluff, Elaine and Newman, they are incubating 4 eggs right now. And we're on hatch watch this week for that first egg. That first egg was laid on March 19 or so. So yeah, I think we should be watching for that egg, that first egg to hatch. Castle Rock Fountains in Wisconsin, Faber and Elsa, they started their clutch a little bit later in the season. And their eggs might hatch very late April, very early May. So watch for that to happen very soon as well. Then with bald eagles, heading to the west coast of California in the Channel Islands, Andor and Cruz doing really well with their 3 chicks there, Sasha and Zuma and Ryder. And we're going to be watching them, I think, until the middle of June before those eaglets fledge. Then back to the mid-continent. Can't forget about the Decorah eaglets at the fish hatchery there. 2 eaglets in that nest, excuse me. The first chick hatched on March 27, the second one on March 29, and we expect a mid-June fledge for those birds. Also, with the Raptor Resource Project and the Philippine Eagle Foundation, over on the other side of the world, Bayani is growing. Bayani is about 4 months old. They were recently moved to a new pen where they can experience the outdoor environment. And so check this magnificent bird out during daylight hours in the Philippines. That's generally overnight for me on the East Coast, but you can always use the rewind feature or check out the snapshots to see what's been going on there. Finally, one more Egg Watch story to tell you, and this has to do with our Stony Point Nature Reserve African penguins. And this is a story of loss and perhaps unintended consequences, because the African penguins are a critically endangered species, but there's not going to be any chicks at this nest this year. I had predicted a hatch for the eggs in this nest for mid-April, and at least 1 chick hatched recently, and 1 egg remained in the nest, and that is until this kelp gull took advantage of the unattended nest. The gull took the egg and the chick that had already hatched. And I was really looking forward to watching this penguin family grow. So I feel a pang of sadness that we can't do that. And I certainly feel for the birds. It's less important what I feel and more important what the birds are experiencing, of course. We don't know what the penguin parent felt after they discovered an empty nest, but we can know that they lost a lot simply in time and energy and their dedication to trying to reproduce. But let's not blame the gull for anything ill-natured. Rather, that's how the gull survives. That's what they know how to do. And scavenging species of gulls they're opportunists. And an unattended penguin nest represented a very lucrative opportunity. And I was reading about kelp gulls, and that's, again, the species that we're looking at here in this clip. They are the dominant large gull species of the Southern Hemisphere. And according to Birds of the World, the number of breeding kelp gulls in the Cape Province of South Africa, in this region where our penguin cam is, that they increased by about 71% between 1982 and 2004. I'm not sure if that holds true today, although Birds of the World also noted that the number of kelp gulls breeding at mainland sites really does show a marked increase in recent history, so the last 50 to 100 years. And some biologists have speculated that mainland nesting sites permit birds to breed closer to sources of artificial food, human foods, namely trash, that human habitation sites really provide, and it provides them also with protection from predators. So some species of birds, like kelp gulls, can apparently thrive within the habitat changes created by humans, while many other species, such as African penguins, struggle to maintain a foothold as we change the ocean and we take more and more of their food sources. And we often don't realize how the changes that we impart affect other species. And again, thanks to our partners at the AfriCams and BirdLife South Africa for bringing us this footage. What other stories will unfold on our nest cams? The only way to know is to keep watching. Before we conclude our program today, we have a few announcements, including a happy birthday, Brian, to a very old wolf.
Yeah, just a little bit ago, we'd have to give a shout out to Zeeb at Mission Wolf in Colorado. He's celebrating his 16th birthday. Absolutely incredible.
That was April 16th. Yeah, and Brian, I know that you're a dog owner, and I'm a dog owner. We know that 16 is very old for a dog, and it's
Yeah.
extremely old for a wolf, wild or captive. So Zeeb is, yeah, it's great to see him enjoying a birthday meal with his partner there, Rosie, in their enclosure. And Mission Wolf provides a sanctuary for unwanted captive-born wolves and horses as well. So, and they offer experiential education to inspire the public to become stewards of the earth, and they do a lot of great work to help people understand wolves. Brian, I know you've met some ambassador animals from Mission Wolf, but I don't think that you met Zeeb. Is that correct?
It wasn't Zeeb, no. Uh, but trust me, getting to meet these wolves in person is definitely a life-changing experience. And being able to see them on the webcams is just a little bit, it's also pretty amazing.
And then one really big announcement that we wanted to make, and we're going to be talking about this all week, but we are for it's Earth Week, essentially this week, Earth Day coming up on April 22nd. But we are hosting a fundraiser, explore.org, that is for the Orangutan Foundation International. It started today. It's going through Sunday. And explore.org, particularly Charlie Annenberg, is matching donations up to $25,000. So for every dollar that you donate, Charlie will match it up to $25,000. Donations are accepted on YouTube at the link for Charlie's documentary, Saving Our Ancestors, which is about orangutans and the late Dr. Biruté Galdikas. Check it out. It's a really great documentary, very interesting to watch, very moving. And you can find the link to the documentary in the description for the program today. So if you're watching More to Explore on YouTube, for example, scroll down in the program description or just ask a chat moderator for it, and they'll be happy to provide it to you.
And just to say, in order to donate, go to the video on YouTube, and the button to donate is on the YouTube page. Definitely checking out. Of course, one of the missions of Explore is to champion the selfless acts of others, and this is definitely a fantastic example of that. And speaking of other events, other than going to watch that film, we have more upcoming events this week, and a bunch of events this week. Starting tomorrow at 7 a.m., we have our regular Africam show, which is kind of like a live guided safari. Then later on, Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, we have I believe our third of this season, the play-by-play with the Raptor Resource Project. And then Wednesday, 10 a.m., we have our Earth Day celebration. And then coming up Thursday, we have our regular Wild Moment show to go over the best highlight clips for the Africam cameras. And Mike, I believe you're going to be there this week as well.
Yeah, I'll be actually 3 of these. Actually, well, the May 4th, More to Explore. But yeah, the only program on here that I'm not participating in is the Africam show tomorrow morning. But the rest of them, I'll be there. I'll be co-hosting that Earth Day celebration with Elisa McCall from Polar Bears International.
Awesome. Fantastic. So be sure to follow us all week. And of course, on May 4 in 2 weeks at 9 a.m. Pacific, we have our next More to Explore program. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. That is the end of our show. And of course, I want to give a special thank you to our moderators and camera operators for making all the magic happen behind the scenes. And of course, a special thank you to my co-host, Mike Fitz. And join us next time for another episode of More to Explore on May 4th. And until then, happy exploring.